sit down left or right?
I think right.
And
Allow
the young man is going to wire you up now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, I wasn't expecting you here. It's not fair that we take over our heads when others have to take.
What's going to happen is I'm going to do the welcome, then I'm handing over to you. Then you're going to run conversation. And if you want to, it's up to you what you do. You can sit here because they're going to give you talk like that. Two to talk. And then once you exhausted the conversation a little bit, you'll open up for any comments or questions from the house. Then, when you, if there's a lull of any questions, this young lady standing over here, that's her, will say, okay, any questions? Yeah, give a little note, you'll say you're going to convey any answers, any questions. So I'll leave that one there, just as a reminder at some point. I'll be sitting over there, so, yeah.
Thank you.
Is it working? Is it working? Sound?
It says so. You can see 1, 2, 3.
You okay? 1, 2. Okay, it's working. Colleagues, welcome. Welcome everybody. Comrades, colleagues, members of staff. We've got our chair of council on the YouTube link. We've got DVC Kiert on the link there. It's a hybrid event. We are so glad to have something in person for a change, but it may be the first and the last in a while, because we're not post-COVID really, but we also have another water sort of crisis. So that's also meaning that we cannot meet like this, in sort of person. So I wanted to thank the DVC who is in charge of those operations in terms of the physical plant for us to have power, water, etc., and to have the event. I'm Alan Zinn. I'm the director at CANRAD. I'm actually standing in for the head of research for Christy. Christy has come down with a bad flu, a fever, and she thought it best to stay in-house. So to our speakers here today, she sends her greetings, and she will also be online. I'm not going to spend any further time. I'm going to dive straight into the speakers that we have here. Dr. Bani Patiana is born in Uitenhage in Kariga. He's one of the founding members of SASO and the BC movement, and he holds a whole lot of positions at the moment. Professor Emeritus of Law and he's the former principal and the VC of UNISA. He's also at the moment a honorary prof here at the university as well. Barney, you will explain what the GCOB means to us a bit later. I see there's on the bio. Now, he's for many decades been focused on the fight for human rights and the battle against racism. He's the embodiment of a commitment to building a free, non-racial, and just society. He's the activism of the 1970s drew the attention of the state, and he was banned under house arrest, and then he had to flee into exile in 1978. He then enrolled for some further studies, but he had already had a degree in law from the UNISA. He returned to the country in the early 90s, and he continued working in theology and the human rights sort of sector. He's appointed a member of the of the commission, the SAHRC, in 1995, and became the chair on the 2nd of October 1995. He's served on various committees in the continent of Africa, and his work in the human rights field has been widely acknowledged. He's got mention in the UNESCO, in the prize for human rights education. He has a PhD from UCT 1995, and he was also admitted as an attorney of the High Court in February 1996. As I say, he serves on various committees: higher education, the African Council for Distance Education, and I present to you Professor Barney to the House. Barney, okay, thanks. Okay. Now the publishers, Jonathan Ball, have given me this, this bio. I think that the Bulelani, you're very modest. We read the lovely articles that were in the Sunday Times a few weeks ago that gave us such a lovely bit more detail about you. But I'm going to go through what they have shared. All right. Courageous yet contested Bulelani Nguka has always stood up for what he believes in. His decision in 2003 as the national director of the public prosecutions, not to prosecute then Deputy President Jacob Zuma, is a decision that he stands by to this day. In the sweeping biography, based on many hours of interviews, author Marion Sparg uncovers the roots of his fearless sort of the activism and tells his side of the story. She goes back to his modest beginnings in the Eastern Cape and the lawyering years with the formidable the Griffiths and Mkange. His various periods of detention and exile and the homecoming. Bulelani played a key role in South Africa's first, the democratic sort of parliament and the drafting of the constitution, etc. He was instrumental in the establishment of the NPA, the forfeiture unit, and the Scorpions, and other mechanisms to tackle the country's crime and corruption sort of problems. However, soon he faced one of the most difficult tasks, confronting former comrades who had become involved in illegal activities. The sting in the tail is a first-hand account of the country's most recent legal and political sort of history. It is an intriguing story about political maneuverings, bombings, hijackings, urban terror, and whispering campaigns. Lies, murder, alleged spies, intrigue, family, and love. Bulelani, I'm hoping that you're going to tell us a little bit more about yourself and this early history in the Eastern Cape, and so we get a better rounded sort of a picture. But we are really pleased and glad to have you in the house, and we're also happy that Jonathan Ball, the publishers, have partnered with us to have the event. We're going to flow like this, people. There are still some people coming in, so but I'm sure they will just find a space as they need to. We had hoped to have a bit of social sort of distancing, but as you can see, it doesn't work too much. The bathrooms are right outside on the right-hand side. We would like you also not to rush off, but to stay behind and to have some refreshment with us afterwards. There will be book signing as well. So there's an opportunity for you to have some chat to the author also. Now the conversation is going to run with Barney taking charge of the front here, and we'll be bringing in the questions from the YouTube as we go along. So Barney, over to you.
Alan, thank you very much. I'm very delighted and honored to be here today. I'm delighted that Jonathan Ball are actually doing this launch of this book here in Gqeberha and here at Nelson Mandela University. I think this is a piece of work that more people should read in our country and become acquainted. Even if it is through the window of one person and one family, and through that come to understand the totality of what we have been through. First, I think it is worth congratulating Marion Spark for undertaking this amazing task and to write a book that is so readable and so much in depth and clearly written by somebody who knows her subject and who knows how to write. It's a book that is well written, and it's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful book. And I'm so glad that Jonathan Ball chose to publish it. I'm also glad that Bulelani was persuaded to take what appears to have been, I don't know how many hours you spent with Mario, talking about this and writing this book. It must have taken a lot of your time. I know you're a very busy person. I know it must have taken quite some persuading to get you to do this, because as Alan said, you're a rather modest fellow. And it's not something that you'd have done very, very easily, because writing a biography can be very intrusive. I do not understand you by nature to be a person who exposes your inner being, your entrails, in the way that a book of this kind would ever do. So I do want both Marion Spark and Bulelani to get it from us, a vote of appreciation and awareness of the task that must have gone into this book. Thirdly, let me just say, by way of confession, it just so happens that Bulelani and Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka are very, very special people. I'm very biased towards them, so don't expect me to do anything that would show that I don't like. I love them. I like them very much. And Bulelani is a brother to me and has been for a long time. He not once, but probably twice, if not more, got me into some sort of trouble about the things he got me into. But I actually do believe that he's a very, very special South African. And South Africa has not been very kind to him. And he has a very great and deep love for this country. And doing this book is an act of love for our country as well. So Bulelani, congratulations. I do have a very special and tender heart towards Bulelani and Phumzile, very special friends. But I don't want you to run away from the fact. I don't know if this went into the thinking about this. This book is very timeless. It comes out at a very particular time in the social history, politics of our country. South Africans, as I understand it, to this day, in this particular time, are, as they say, at sixes and sevens. Kind of reminding me of the Israelites who were in the wilderness and beginning to say, the flesh pots of the Egyptians. There are people who actually, I heard the other day on radio that apartheid was actually better than this. At least we had jobs, we had food, and we could have houses. And people somehow have forgotten about apartheid, what it was about. And that's because so much of our vision for South Africa has caused far too many of us degrees of pain and disappointment and a sense of failure. And so it is a time to actually have a book like this. If anything else, in my view, if anything else, just so that we can understand that there are among us men and women of stature, men and women of courage and of valor, men and women of principle, who really sought to uphold the very essence of what we believe as South Africans through thick and thin. So it's a statement of courage and encouragement that we are being presented with today, that whatever may happen, wherever you might be at this point in time, never give up, never give up. Never ever say you have regrets. Never say that South Africa is a failure. Because if you say that, then you're saying that you and I are failures. But rather, help yourself to understand that in fact, a luta continua, that we are in the process of building something big and greater than ourselves. If ever we thought, Mandela says, that 1994 was the end of struggle, we made a mistake. Or that the Constitution marks the end of struggle, then we're mistaken. It only actually gives us the possibility of working and struggling again for something better. That's where we are, and this book is a testament of that. So Bulelani and I are going to have a conversation and engagement. I said to him, I'm actually quite conscious that you have been around the country opening about this book and in the process opening about yourself and who you are. And I was wrestling to try to find how best can we enable South Africans to get to a very deep understanding of what this book is about. Because I take the view the book is not just about Zuma, by the way. Bulelani, the totality of Bulelani is not Zuma. And I want us to try to find something in Bulelani that is more than Zuma. Something that actually we need to tap into, which Marion actually tries very hard, especially in that last chapter of the book, where two very, very close friends of Bulelani speak. One is Phumzile. Just read that piece that is very intimate, very loving, very endearing, that Phumzile speaks about her husband. The other one is Saki. Saki is sitting in Pakalma Sak, Bakbon. The other one, Ngukuma Lula, who's been, I cannot think of anybody who's as close to Bulelani as Saki is. And he speaks about Bulelani as a friend. And it is very, very important to hear that, to hear the personality behind this. And I said writing my is it a preface or something?
Forward.
Forward. I said, you know, the remarkable thing about this book, which autobiographies don't always get right, which biographies, sorry, don't always get right, is that the voice of Bulelani, you can actually hear Bulelani speaking. You can actually hear his voice coming through ups and downs, and whatever was happening, his voice was there. His voice was authentic. His voice was strong. His voice was full of hope. His voice was a word of commitment. And that's what makes the book exciting. And that's what we're doing. Umbona ke umqono ukhwebelo. Kumfowa phaya eXesi. Amaqono ukhwebe ke ngabantu aba special kwelizwe. They are people who tried to be counterintuitive about what our country should be. And they are people who really were brought together, Imbedlenge and others who deserted from other places, Hoy and San and Xhosa and White and all of that. And I've often said that Amaqono ukhwebe represents what South Africa could have been. I'm not talking about Chief Khama and how he was one of the early converts to Christianity. I'm not talking about the mission, the Methodist mission in Anshaw, which is where Bulelani comes from. Then I want to ask Bulelani two opening shots for him. Is that when you agreed to be persuaded for this book, what did you think? What did you think this book was intended to represent and reflect to the people of this country?
Thanks, Buti. That was a wonderful introduction, by the way. Really, thank you very much for that. I'm very touched. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for coming. You know, but it took me some time before I agreed to do this. Firstly, my family had been through a lot of pain towards the latter part of my assignment at the NPA. And it was going to be difficult to write about me without touching that part. And I really didn't want to reopen the wounds. So I decided not to. That was the first thing. The second thing was that I didn't think that I was going to be able to say everything that I wanted to say. Because some of the stuff is not supposed to be in the public domain. And so I thought that, let me not do it. But Marion was very persistent. And the second thing was, my family, particularly my kids, they'll go out and meet their friends and bump into somebody, and they'll be asked, oh, you're Bulelani's son, okay, why did your dad do this? You know, look, we are in this mess now because of your father. You know? If it was not for him, you know, was there a conspiracy between your father and Mbeki so that your wife can be the deputy president? You know? I was playing golf in one golf course in Johannesburg. And we stopped for the halfway. And one of the ladies who was serving there was a student, a law student at UNISA, a law and politics student at UNISA. And she saw my card that I was paying with. Ah, we're studying about you. Tell me, is it true that Mbeki gave that job to your wife because you kicked out Zuma? You know, oh. So I thought it was important to just to put the record straight. And this is not about settling scores with anybody. So that my kids and the students in these universities can then know exactly what happened, why we took a decision that we took, and why we did certain things at the NPA, and why we set up the Scorpions in the first place. And so, how we built the National Council of Provinces, because I was responsible for that. So I thought those things are important, hence we wrote the book.
Thank you very much, Bulelani. You know, what is a golden thread through Bulelani, which is in the bad piece as well, is the persistence of courage in your life and about the choices that you made. And that, quite frankly, you could have chosen otherwise, right? You could have chosen, like many of us do, to become a very comfortable, prosperous, very rich lawyer who loses every case that they take. But people still come and give you millions to take even more cases and lose even more. But you chose differently. You chose a life of risk, which I think at an intellectual level sounds very, very strange. Knowing as you did, you went and did articles, you left home to go to Durban to do articles with GM and Sisnyame. That was a risk. Wonderful lawyers. Wonderful lawyers. You, after having come out of prison and all of that, and with all that happened to both GM and Sisnyame, you came out into practice and then went into politics. And then I often wondered, why did you accept this invitation to become? Many of us were very afraid for you, because it was almost obvious where it was going to end. because the task itself, it was a poison chalice. I don't know if you agree, but it was a poison chalice. And you established the NPA. There was nothing before there. And you did it with just amazing finesse and courage. You went to Geneva following your young bride. And I know this for a fact. You got very involved with ASC in exile, as if you were in exile. You were not in exile. Is this your streak that you take risks like that in your life?
Puti, you've asked many questions. Let me say this firstly. I don't recognize this word courage in me. I think I'm a coward. I look at opportunities. Mm-hmm. I think to go and work for GM was a wonderful opportunity. Mm-hmm. I know many people would have died to be where I was. GM was a wonderful, wonderful person first, and a great lawyer. He built many of us. Pius Langa, Moerane, Louis Kweya, Justice Poswa, Vuka Shabalala, H.K. Naidu, Kesi Naidu. I could mention quite a number. GM believed in African excellence, and it threw us into the deep end. That was the opportunity. And also he gave us the opportunity to serve our people by making use of law and advancing the frontiers of freedom, using the apartheid law to achieve our objectives. That was an opportunity, not a risk. I know you see it from the other side. Of course, you know how the Chinese write danger. Mm-hmm. Those two go together, a risk and opportunity. No, I didn't want this job. It was Sagi who put me in. Dala first approached me, I refused, and then he spoke to Zola Square, a close friend of mine. I refused. Then they went to him, and he asked me, why don't you take this job? I said, well, these are the He said, all of us are dealing with the same problems. At that time, he was the MD of Transnet. He said, what do you think? Here I employ, 300,000 people who are working with you. Half of those are white people. And so I deal with all the issues of transformation. Why do you think you're different? And then, of course, Mbeki came into the picture, and he made it difficult for me to say no. It was a huge challenge. But to be honest with you, Puti, I recognized at the back of my mind that this is a challenge. And I thought that the problems I'm going to encounter are going to come from the ordinary criminals, are going to come from the white people that I'll be replacing the organization, when we deal with the transformation. Never thought that my worst enemies will be my own people. Never occurred to me. No, that came as a surprise. Talk about Geneva. It was wonderful. But ANC didn't have an office in Geneva. And yet it was like a halfway station because it has a number of UN offices there. The ILO, the United Nations, the human rights. So it was really a busy place. And once you are there, you begin to see opportunities where, hey man, there's something that you can do here. I give you an example. The Human Rights Commission, you will know that it has these sessions every year. And then there was a standing item on South Africa. To be Israel and then South Africa. And you go there and you listen to these discussions, everybody goes and says the same thing year in, year out. And the challenge for us is, how can we change this? It was then that I thought, oh, okay, let's bring people from home. That's when I organized for Archie Gumede to come and address the United Nations. It had never been done before. And that was an opportunity. So Archie came with Mos Mosheng, and using the Transkei passport, you know. And the regime didn't know. Nobody knew. And we organized a sport for him during prime time, which was around 6 o'clock. So when Archie started speaking, I remember the first sentences. My name is Archie Gumede. I'm the president of the United Democratic Front of South Africa. I'm here to represent X number of millions of South Africans who are oppressed. It had never been done before. It would have been the ANC here, and you should have seen everybody stopped, and they stood around and looked where he was. By the time he finished, there was a queue of people waiting to talk to him. I'm saying those were just opportunities that presented themselves, and I think that we grabbed them with both our hands.
Yeah.
I hope I've answered your question. I'm sorry to be
Yes, you
long-winded.
have. No, that's fine. Thank you very much. Now, the book is, as you have gathered, is not just a testament of courage, but it's of honesty and introspection and reflection of a life. This title, Bulelani, The Sting in the Tail. Let me not put words in your mouth. Why this title?
No, that one is easy. But it was not easy to defend it with Jonathan Paul. Where's Maya? They didn't understand the title and they didn't like it. They wanted me to put in the title to be Not Afraid, you know, which I didn't want, which I thought, no, it's, you know, it doesn't reflect me, you know. No, the sting in the tail comes from Nomatugudwan. Nomatugudwan stings you with the tail. But in this instance, it is the story that you begin to understand what it is that we went through. That's what it says.
But your story is more than that. It's more than the sting. It is much more about beyond the sting, living beyond the sting. Isn't that the substance of the story?
Absolutely correct. Yes, you're absolutely correct. You live beyond that. But very few people associate what I did in the NPA other than be associated with the Scorpion, which was probably 10% of the work that I did. You know, building the NPA and working there to create an institution that was non-existent and to give it legitimacy in the eyes of the public and build public confidence in the rule of law was the most critical aspect of the work that we did. And this is what we're trying to do. So the title refers to that work.
That's right. Now, if I may just move us on a little bit, Bulelani, before we come to questions. We're in the middle of the conversation. Your character, your experience is in law and politics.
Yeah.
You had a future in politics, we would say.
Yes.
You were deputy to Omgov, I think, in the
Yes.
Senate.
Yes.
In the interim constitution. And you could have been the Chief Justice of South Africa right now. So, gets me to kind of think as sitting in prison in 1977, 1976. And contemplating the horror of admission as an attorney in apartheid South Africa those days left me with just amazing. I knew that I wasn't going to do it. And as I was ready for admission in '76, and we were looking at how does lawyering in an apartheid environment enhance the thing you were talking about, enhance our values and struggle. And those days, my answer was that it cannot be done, because I was convinced that whatever I tried to do, I work with apartheid, I work through apartheid laws, I am an officer of the court, I help the judges and magistrates implement apartheid laws. And I was saved from that because we were beginning with Sai Kanunu and others. We began to say, we ought to really find something different, another different way of lawyering. Fortunately, I didn't have to go very far with that because the system decided that, no, I would be a very dangerous lawyer, so they banned me from becoming a lawyer. So I was banned from admission on the basis that I was a communist. I've never been a communist. I got a letter from the Minister of Justice says, whereas you have been listed as a communist, therefore, the premise was wrong. Now, I look today, both law and politics have been very, very important in the advancement of this country in a very strange way. You began, in reference to GM and Sisnyami, you began to help us to understand how lawyering as a liberating, transforming profession could be undertaken. But I look today, I look at the courts, you know, since the Mayiwa case and others.
Please don't go there.
Others I won't mention. I see what the LPC is saying about decorum and order. I see disorder in parliament by people both wearing red and others not so red. I see politicians going and writing to the FBI in South Africa, and I say, this is a mess. How do you feel about being a lawyer? I must be embarrassed about being a lawyer these days.
No, don't watch that Mayiwa trial. Otherwise, you'll stop your kids from doing law. You know, Puti, law is a wonderful profession. You know, one of the first black judges in America, in fact, the first African-American to be the judge in the Supreme Court in America, Thurgood Marshall, he writes that we're enslaved by law, and it is through law that will be free. Now think about that. We used law. We took a different approach from yours. That let's mobilize, let's use the law, let's use their own law to expose them. I can mention a number of cases that we did. And I'll mention one where we couldn't. You know, we saved Matuna, Penyon Matuna, we represented them. We saved them. We saved a number of our people from getting to the gallows. There was a case of, some of you might know a guy called Umange, James Mange.
Yeah.
Who started a party called KISS.
Oh, did he start that? Okay.
Yeah, he started a party called KISS. James Mange and them were arrested and charged with high treason. James was arrested in Queenstown. At that time, we were dealing with another trial in Pietermaritzburg, so they're all put together. And we were defending them, and one day we got to court, they fired us. They said, we don't want to be defended, we're going to defy the system. And they started fighting with the police in court, started smoking in court, didn't participate in the trial at all. The police will come and give evidence, they'll be sitting and singing and doing whatever they wanted to do. And then they started caging them, put them in the cage in court. They didn't care until the day they were sentenced. Mange was sentenced to death. And others got lengthy terms of imprisonment. It was then that they realized. And when Mange was sentenced to death, his co-accused were crying leaving the court, because they then realized this is no joke. We managed to get them again, get them lawyers, and fortunately managed to have James Mange's death sentence commuted to life. So our participation could have made a difference. It did make a difference. Now, there are a number of some of those cases. I mean, I'll mention one which is in the book. We're sitting in the office one morning, about to go to court. So one lady walks in. She was a cleaner at Eddington Hospital, White Hospital. She walks in and says, "Mxenge, there's an ANC child who's dying there in that hospital. Do something." His name, I don't know. What happened? He's been beaten. I was called in to come and clean his blood. You know, I can't even recognize his face. Man, we need to have instructions. We can't just go there. We don't know his name. So we walked around and moved around and contacted our contacts everywhere. Identified his family. Mfanakangobese was at Chesterfield. Okay. Now, how do we get there? Fortunately, there was a white nurse who was willing to talk. And she came in and says, "Yes, I was there. This is the person." As soon as we identified the name and that, confirmed that is there, we went straight to court. Instructed Pius and MTK Moran. We were lucky we got a good judge, did court. And all we wanted was, these are the allegations we have received. We want you, judge, to go and see for yourself if this boy has been assaulted. We believe he's in hospital. And this nurse had given us the affidavit. And so, through that intervention, and the state had brought 3 or 4 senior counsel, one of them included Boys, and later became the judge president of Natal, who refused my appeal, by the way. And later I served with him on the Judicial Services Commission. He wouldn't hardly look me in the eye for all the time we were there. And they argued that the law says you can't be seen, you are incommunicado. And Didcot said, what prevents me as the judge to see the fellow? As a result, they brought Sabelo to court and charged him. Wouldn't want him to be brought to court. What he was charged, that you could see the fellow had been badly beaten up. I'm saying, put it, the strategies that were adopted was that let's fight the system, use their own laws, and it worked. We were able to save some of our people. Now, coming back to now, you see what is happening. The opposition is using the courts to fight their battles. Everything, every day. Whatever is happening, they're not fighting political battles, they're using the courts. To a certain extent, you think, these guys have taken a leaf from our history because they're using the courts to fight us. And of course, we make it possible for them because we hardly follow the procedures. We do things the wrong way. It's embarrassing what you see out there, to be honest with you, because this is not the legacy that you wanted to leave. One of the things that I thought, Puti, I was pushing on. I remember when we had the swearing in of the Scorpions, I invited Judge President Ngwepe for them to take the oath before him. And I quoted the Latin book that I read, Hannibal. Hannibal was taken to church by his father at the age of 9. And his father made him take an oath that he will never be friendly disposed to the Romans. And Hannibal is the only African general who defeated the Romans. And I would quote this and say, I want you guys never be friendly disposed towards corruption and crime. That was my message to them. And Ngwepe would respond and quote another general who said, whatever happens, Carthage must fall. Remember that? Carthage must fall.
Carthago delenda est.
Yes, Carthage must fall. And Ngwepe was the message he was sending to the guys. He said, crime must fall. That's the message. That's what we're trying to build. You go in there, that's been destroyed. That culture, those ethos that we're promoting are not there. And so you look at society today and say, where are we going? What's to be done? Sorry, I took long to answer a question.
No, you're only beginning to answer my next question. My next question is that interface between law and politics and the vision that you had in the writing of this constitution, in the new South Africa, and the sacrifices that you made in and through the NPA, and indeed as a practicing lawyer. That interface was always there. But you ask yourself today, wouldn't you, in terms of where are we going? How can we rescue something? In fact, for all that you gave to the NPA and in all of these things, are we not in a worse place than we were? So it seems, anyway. Are we not overwhelmed by criminality and lawlessness? Are we not in a sense unable to uphold the Constitution and the law as we are committed to do? So this is not just a negative question, but it is a positive question, basically, in the way of saying, where did it all go wrong? How did it get to be where it is?
This is a question, Puti, I've been grappling with. You think about it, you find no solution, you park it. It comes back to you. And sometimes you ask yourself whether you have not been a part to the problems that South Africa is going through. Whether you have not been unwittingly a contributor to this. You see, our institutions are still very young. Very, very young. Just as an anecdote, when I took office, I visited a number of countries just to check what they were doing, to learn from their institutions. When I got to the UK to ask about the Crown Prosecution Service, everybody I spoke to said, you know, the problem with the Crown Prosecution Service is that it's still too young. And therefore has not managed to evolve and create precedents and everything. So I asked, how old is it? They said it's just about 60 years old. In the meantime, I was starting a new organization. They say if you take, for example, our parliament was built in the 12th century. So you look at the government institutions there, they've evolved over a period of time where people have accepted that you must play within the rules. Here, there isn't that acceptance. It's not there. And people think that it's fine, of course, to go into the street and destroy what has been built for you. It's fine, it's acceptable. You know, you go to parliament, you have members of parliament who don't want a debate, who trash the very institutions that they've been elected to uphold. And I was saying at some stage that we have people who have no self-respect, in fact, who don't respect themselves, who happen to be our representatives in parliament, which is a bad thing. So where it went wrong, Puti, was when we started attacking our own institutions that we're building for them to be there to protect us. You know, Osaki will tell you that during most of our discussions in the ANC, as we were writing the Constitution, we would say, this Constitution must serve us when we are no longer in government. It must be able to stand the test of time. Because when you are in power, you don't need it. You can always use power, you know. But when you are in opposition, that's when you need the protection. We don't do that. This is the problem, that our institutions, the first one to go was the Scorpions. The second one to be captured was the NPA. Then the police, then the intelligence, then SARS, you know. Once you have those, you can do anything you like because there is no accountability. That is the problem.
Yeah. Thank you very much for that. That's a very honest appraisal, Bulelani. And Bulelani, one of the things that I should have said at the beginning, whether you had intended it or not, you happen to be a pioneer. A pioneer is a pathfinder, the person who kind of removes the, in order to open up the path, and yet you walk that path. You do it while you walk it. Pioneers are people with vision, who see the possibilities, who build structures to some extent. Like you, I would say the South African Human Rights Commission, I was the first chairperson. It was in a sense a pioneer.
But you must remember.
And you had something to do with it.
Yes.
I became Vice Chancellor of UNISA. It was another pioneering work. It was to really rebuild an institution from scratch, almost. But then there's the other people who come after you, who think that they can start from scratch.
Yes.
And undo everything that the power is. Isn't it painful? How do you cope with that?
Oh, it's the most painful thing. It's, you know, let me tell you just a story. I'd left the NPA. I'm driving with one of the security guys. First thing I hear is that they have arrested Mark Thatcher, Margaret Thatcher's son in Cape Town. And I hear that there was some problem, some things which didn't go right. So I turned to this boy, I said, how dare they do that? Why didn't they tell me? I'd forgotten that I'd left. And so when some of these things happen and you hear this is what has happened, you feel it here.
Yeah.
You feel it here. But it's quite painful, actually. It's really quite painful. Because you had so much hope
Yeah.
for all these institutions. You know, one of the things which I liked most, and I knew, when I read that, I knew that we made it. A professor writes an article. I won't mention the university. He says he asks his students this simple question. You travel to the US, you win the lotto there, right? The lotto is X amount of money. It was not $4 million that are stashed in mattresses. So you win X amount of dollars, this $1 million. You come back to South Africa. Will you declare it to SARS?
Mm-hmm.
He asked the students. 90% said yes. And the next question was why? They said because the scorpions will come for us.
Yeah.
I knew then
Absolutely.
that we've made it.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Fantastic, Bulani. I think we have to break it here. I still have, I would have a few more, but maybe we can round up later on. And I think you've opened yourself up. You've opened the book up. We have opened the book up for the audience. And by the way, there's an audience in cyberspace as well. And Tlhakanipho will bring any questions from there that we can entertain. And but the audience here, I think, must have the privilege of starting offering questions to Bulelani, and in her absence to Marion Spark, the author of the biography. Can we do that? Can you start having 3 questions here, one, and then we go to the online streamers. We take 3 questions, we come back, 3 questions here. How's that? Thank you. Well, I thought, Alan, that somebody was supposed to actually take charge of this process. Okay, all right.
Where are you going with?
No, I wanted to see who's...
oh, okay. I thought you were dumping me.
Okay, can you start there at the back?
Okay, I'm here, but
Where's the mic?
the mic is
okay,
here.
there we go.
The mic is here.
Thank
Thanks. My name is Mandla Matoaga, citizen of Kabeja. Firstly, let me, if you allow me, Professor Panipikiana, to actually thank Alan Zeiss, Professor Alan Zeiss, for bringing us together here. Really, for me, in the first instance, when I look around the room, I'm inspired by the people that are gathered here, Mr. Nguka, which I suppose, means a lot to you. And as such, I would dare to say the brains that are here, if you were to lock them tonight and say they must review the Constitution, there's a chance that there will be a lot that could come out of what you've put together here, Alan Zeiss. So thanks to you. But 2 questions for me. One, Mr. Nguka, if there's one thing that you cannot avoid today when the term prima facie, is put together, for example, I suppose in the average mind of South Africans, prima facie, Bulelani Nguka, Jacob Zuma, and all that. And unfortunately, you can't undo that.
And I don't want to undo it.
Of course. What does that mean to you And I suppose the term itself and what we know it came to be as a result of that statement, which I suppose, was a result of a bit of investigation, that you came to that conclusion that, I would not therefore go any further. And I guess today you are, of course, taking a flag as a result of that. That's number one. Number two, Professor Pani-Pityana, you spoke about the Constitution. And South Africans today have little trust and have lost trust in the Constitution itself. And we look at the role of the NPA, the Scorpions, and we look at the politics globally. Last night I watched CNN, I look at the January 6th committee, Putpani, where now they're reviewing what happened on January 6th and what it had damaged, what are called the paragons of constitution in the world, the damage that it was done. You look at what happened to us, you look at the Zondo Commission, you draw parallels. And that then leads me to my second question, the value of trust. And that is why I was saying, when I look at this room, I look at some of you guys, I trust you, even myself, and how easy it is to erode the value of trust. And I look at what you've done, Bulelani, I've looked at Vusi Pikoli, and today I look at Shamila Patoi, and that trust for me as a South African citizen cuts across. And yet, as South Africans, we are gullible, we're so easy to follow any nonsense about pala, about this, about that. Do we still have to trust NPA? But what is mandate, what is duty, and at the center of it all, the trust in our Constitution. Thank you.
Thank you, Mandla. Can I take this a question from here?
There's a mic at the back. Namandis Bulse.
Shabulis.
My name is Khanti Lamane. Today, in fact, this morning, we lay to rest Ulita Mlahleki at the Great Centenary Hall. This evening, in front of me, in this room, is the generation, different generations that inspired me as a young activist then, in the early 80s, of which I responded to a certain call that was made. Putbani, what happened, the post, I still feel it. What happened, the Khula, I still feel it. And you are seated here. A black consciousness as an ideology, as a philosophy, many of us in this room are products of EPCM. Chayingo, Tiatemba, the influence of the great Xhosa warriors who fought brilliantly in the valleys osuka kuzo. Yile nto ikwenze to look at these opportunities. I looked at the opportunities myself. When OR was saying all to the front, render the country ungovernable, apartheid unworkable, I responded to that call. And kayifundi le ncwadi. But when I listened to you, kumhlobo wenene, I said, "Dizawuza." Ndiwasele namamanzi etyume. Iluma ke blues. When you call us into action, when we look at the situation esikuyo now, it requires us ungene endimeni. Sanolishiya ikhuba khumalo. I have a privilege of participating now in the group yethu pha yelunga generals. Mine is, Alan, what we are left with, what is happening at Galvindale, what is happening at Katanga, what is happening in New Brighton, back in the days, being a source. The situation in Yamapara now, and the rate of crime, where you'll find our own people are scared, Akom to Pagamayo, it must come to an end. After the input of this book, Chayungu, is our boy following? I hope, Putbani, from tonight we will know the renewal we're talking about in Don. Ngoba naba bantu bento bahleli in this room. Kaya, you know, Qaban. Naba bantu bento, I always remind people, abantu bento balap. Thank you.
Andy, thank you very much for that impassioned presentation. I think I know what you're talking about. Is there another one in this? Umogi nangu.
Ndiyabulisa.
Uba? Uphi?
I feel we are blessed to have you in front of us today, because you know and you are close to the leaders that, you know, led us in the past. You are close to Biko, both of you. You are very close to Mandela, both of you. You respected Sobukwe. Now, these people that are here, I'm not an academic. I'm not going to talk nonsense. I'm going to talk about what we want to achieve and what these people wanted. Are we closer to what those people wanted, or are we further? Yesterday I attended Dennis Bruder's launch. The audience was not like this. The so-called Africans were not there. It was what they call the coloreds. And there's nothing like colored in this country, you know. So, what I'm trying to say is that we are not close to integration. Sobukwe said we need, if we want to retain if you want to retain the term African, we need to redefine it. Those that are Africans are those that are having allegiance and loyalty to Africa, not pigmentation. Biko. Biko said those that are blacks and those that are politically, socially, and economically deprived by law. If they are not deprived by law, what are they going to be? They're going to be South Africans or Azanians. I oppose white domination and also oppose black domination. That's what Mandela said. Where are we? We speak about northern areas. We speak about colors. We speak about Indians. You can't be an Indian in Africa and be an Indian in India. You can't. In India, there are people with hair like this. They are Indians. They are not Africans. Thank you.
Moki, thank you very much. Bona, can I?
Let's take 2 more questions. Let's take 2 more questions.
Yes. Okay, let's take 2 more questions from the online. Yes, please. Tlhaganipo?
Okay, so there are 2 comments online. One from Denise Zinn. Such a glorious and warm intro by Bonnie to Bulelani and the book, Wise Insights. And then a question by Dr. Ruby Ann Levendal. Thank you for sharing your experiences. Having experienced what you did, would you avail yourself in a new electoral dispensation?
Thank you, the 2 of them. Can we, who has the, yeah, okay.
Thank you, and I feel very honored to be here today. Let me say and shout and say, apartheid divide, UDF unites. It was in those days in the 80s with Griffin Chayenge, Achikumede, Kakal Kotolos, Sipo Ashed, and others. So, my question is to you. As one of those sharp-minded, I can say, comrades, as your integrity was damaged, everything was done to you was, I'd say, physically, emotionally, and etc. And the commission was set, everything was done, and you were acquitted, and you won the case. Why didn't you go to sue those who said you were a spy? What was the reason for that, not to take that route?
Yeah. Good question. Thank you very much. Can we come to the middle? We take 1 each from each slice.
1, 2. Hello. Ngosiputbana.
Okay.
Ngicela sibuyele lapha encwadini. Kukho indawo phaya Putbani na kuwe Put Bulelani. Apho wena Putbani ubhalela uMandela. Ukhalaza ngempatho yakhe kuBulelani. Wayenze ntoni umbona bakuMandela?
I don't know that.
Okay.
Okay, this side. Last round. Have you got another round? Okay. Can you take that one? No.
Max Fuzani, good evening. In the book, you, in a way, describe in the most chilling and gruesome way the death of several of our leaders, Griffith Mxenge, Matthew Konewe, and so on. And then there are a number of them who also passed on here in PE. Sadly, fast forward into post-apartheid South Africa, there are families who feel that there are unresolved issues. Especially, they say they can't find closure because they don't know who perpetuated or was responsible for those killings. So is there something that the liberation movement ought to have done to ensure that those who were responsible for the deaths were actually found, whether through the TRC process or through a process that will assist the families to understand what happened to their members and also to assist them find closure and for the healing process to take place. Thank you.
Max, thank you very much. Can we now go over there?
So this
there you go. Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening.
In Cape Town, you were asked a question about what would you do different this time? And you said you would fire everyone in government, all of us in government, seeing how things are happening. Looking into the state of affairs and seeing that our courts are used as playground by politicians, the very constitution they wrote, do you think that it's time our constitution goes under review?
Okay, this side.
Secondly, this is more personal. You spoke about, okay, your friends in Cape Town spoke about the time during the spy tapes. And what I would like to know is what has that taught you about forgiveness? Okay, betrayal by your own comrades, you know, because comrade, my understanding of comrade means unity, friendship, everything. So what has it taught you about that? And secondly, in terms of forgiveness, because at some point you learn to live with those things, what has it taught you about forgiveness? And given the times we're in.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Are there any other questions on online?
But
Are there any
let's take the second round. Let's leave those for the second round.
Okay, okay. Obulelan is ready to, we'll come back.
We'll take another round. Let's start with Mandla. You raised the issue, for example, the prima facie, and say that has been with me. Indeed. And that will continue to be with me. It was not an easy decision to take, particularly in the light of the fact that the investigators and the prosecutors who were dealing with the case had recommended that we should prosecute. But after careful consideration of the facts and the evidence that we had, I came to a different conclusion. Now, that decision was mine and mine alone. I've been saying, as I've been to the tours, and say the easiest thing for me then would have been to charge Zuma because I could hide behind. They say, oh, Billy Downer, they said I must charge, therefore, and let the courts go and acquit or convict Zuma, whatever the evidence is there. But that would have been a wrong thing to do. And I didn't want to create a precedent very early on in our democracy that would take such chances with people's freedoms, regardless of who was involved. That was number one. Number two, I had to take into consideration what is called the public policy, what is in the public interest. Do you go to court when you yourself, you doubt if you're going to win the case, and therefore plunge the country into chaos, you know, when you are not certain about the outcome of the case? And so, I'm happy to say, at least I taught South Africa this word, prima facie. It used to be confined to lawyers. Now everybody knows it. So yes, I'm very conscious of that. But you know, some people, of course, take it a step further and blame me for what has happened in the last 10 years. And say, if you had prosecuted Zuma, we would never have had him as a president. And of course, my retort is very simple. You voted for him. And you wanted to use the courts to solve your political problems. And I wasn't going to allow that to happen. So, even as I sit here today, I say, it was my decision, and I'm proud of that decision. Because I took the right thing. I didn't take the easy route out. Now, indeed, South Africans have lost trust, not in the Constitution. I beg to disagree with you, Mandla. They have lost trust in the governance institutions. They lost trust in our government. You don't trust them. You see the jokes now. one of them was, this fellow goes to confess to the priest that he beat up a politician. And the priest says, please, man, come and confess your sins, not the good deeds. So you see, our people have lost trust in them. Because there used to be a term here, I call it radio, a story in the radios, uhlohle sakhe. This is what our people have come to regard those who are in government today. Bango hlohle sakhe. So, absolutely, it was jail. Now, absolutely, it's very important that we begin to create trust in the institute, but that trust must be earned. You don't shout about it and say, oh, trust me. You must demonstrate that you are worthy of that trust. So you ask me if I have trust in the NPA. I'm saying that with the current leadership in the NPA today, I believe they are on the right track. You know, they have brought in some good people. Shamila has been able to get one guy who used to work with me. His name is Anton Du Plessis. He's an Afrikaner. He was working for the Institute of Security Studies, and then he left to go and work at the Security Council in the UN. He's come back now. He's one of the deputies. I think he's a good guy. He's transferred Rodney Tikok from Cape Town to Pretoria. He's brought back Omar Abaji to run the asset forfeiture unit. He's got back this boy Mtunzi Mahaka, who was in the private sector, to go and work in her office. Had even tried to get to Sipho Ngwema back there. Sipho was working there. So I think they're making good strides. They've made a good start. We've seen the number of cases now that are coming to court. I mean, we've seen the Transnet cases. I think there's more. They have been saying that themselves, that over the next 3 to 4 months, we'll be seeing more cases coming to court. So I think let's give them the benefit of doubt. It's taken long, but I think that they are beginning to do something. I hope I've answered your questions.
Yeah, we can move on.
And then Clint, you know, the problem is not about the philosophy or the ideologies in this country. The simple problem is this. We have people who are occupying positions they are not qualified for, therefore they can't do their jobs. You don't have to be a Marxist or a capitalist or anything, just to be able to tatalapa begalapa. They can't even do that tatalapa begalapa. You know, I was here in beginning of the year to attend the funeral of Sister Gasaki. We spent the whole day looking for a venue where we could bury Sister Waki. Epa election. Akumdaka. I have never seen a township so dirty. Hey, you ask me, why is this town so dirty? Imanyumnyes. Sisiti sifuna, we wanted Sati no Sizapa. Usagi says, no, we can go and do. When we went to see it, you can't bring people here. All you want is just people to do the jobs that they're employed for. This will change the country. People are just not doing that. So, I'm saying, you know, black consciousness was very good. We all started from there. You know, it conscientized us to know who we are, where we come from, and made us to be proud of ourselves. It was nice. You know, I'm black and I'm proud. I'm still very proud of, I'm an African. You know, I love that. Putmogi, I agree with you. I don't have to respond. You said it all. You said nice thing. Nice to see you, man. Long time. You're my friend. You're the friend of my friend, Umakubela, you know. You're the friend of Ndobeko, you know. Thank you for that. Thank you for coming. And then we spoke about. The next question was about why I did not. Why I do not sue those people? Firstly, it would have taken a long time. The case would have taken a long time to go to court. And at the end of the day, they would have got to court and say, we are sorry. We apologize. And then the courts would have said, okay, they've apologized. Please accept, please accept their apology. And then people will walk away. No. We thought the best thing to do was to expose them, which is what we did. And they suffered more damage than I did because they were branded everywhere where they went. I don't know if you've seen the cartoons, Mac and Mo. I mean, they're all over the place. So that's why I didn't sue. Which brings us to the question of forgiveness. Mo came to apologize to me, and we accepted that. Because it was done in good faith. You don't want to be going around spending your life hating people. It just does not contribute anything to you. You gain absolutely nothing out of it. You go around being angry. I'm angry today, but tomorrow I move on with my life, you know. Which is, I'll come to the TRC cases. The simple answer to that question is this. I was given the TRC reports. When I received them, I created a special section in the office and I tasked it. My instructions were very simple. Where you have evidence, prosecute. Period. Continue. Find evidence. There are some of the cases which I would have loved to prosecute them. Listen to this. I would have loved to prosecute them. But if I had done that, the accused would have been acquitted. Right? And that would have changed the course of history. Do you understand what I'm saying? Why do I say that? Because the evidence was not there. The cases were old, right? And the evidence that we had there was insufficient to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. It would not have qualified. So do you want me to go and take so-and-so to court? He's acquitted that he was not responsible for killing Biko. Huh? Then you call and say the law is an ass because we know that they killed him. So this is not an easy thing to do. So we had to weigh each case based on its merits. Where there's evidence, prosecute. Where you don't have evidence, don't take chances. Later, I heard that there were some of the cases where the matter was asked that maybe the government needs to review its policy, but I was gone by then. So I'm not there, so unfortunately. But that's what I'm able to account for. I can tell you each and every case that was presented to me, go. I said charge no vote, and I charged them. Unfortunately, he died before we could finalize that case. There was another one about the new electoral dispensation. Was it? Yeah.
There was a question there.
Yes. The Uzola. Uzola said, no, before I get to that, there was another one. Ubantu, I'll come back to Zola's cases. Want to ask about this thing. You know, we're having a debate in the Senate. So Madiba was presenting his budget vote. And I I speak to Joel and say, hey, Joel, there are these issues, man, that are confronting us. We're asked these questions all the time. I'm going to raise this thing during the debate, and Madiba can respond to it. This issue of the appointment of white people to senior positions, Chris Stolz, governor of the Reserve Bank, Kat Lippenberg, Defense Force, Derek Keys, Minister of Finance. Then I went on and on mentioning this. It looked like all the key economic departments were handled by the white people, as if one has no confidence in the Africans. And these are the debates that we're having amongst ourselves. So I raised this issue, and Madiba thanked me for raising it. And they responded to it about the difficulties, the importance of reconciliation, wara, wara, wara. Okay, that's no problem. Following day, headlines. Ncuka slams Mandela. Sure. Madiba saw red. And all the newspapers. So he called Omkov, he called Thabo, he called me, Stofile, and Mendi Msimang. Mendi was the chair of caucus. So I'm the chief whip, Senate, Stoff chief whip, National Assembly. Omkov is the deputy, and then Thabo is the deputy president. So we're all sitting there. And he says, you said, you're not being a populist. But I think you were. Look at this. ANC attacks Mandela. Ncuka attacks Mandela. She had all the newspapers there. How am I going to respond to this? Stoffel jumps, takes it up. He said, actually, he was very mild. So he goes on, Stoff goes on. He says, no, these are issues that we are dealing with every day, are being raised in our caucus and whatnot. And then, before Umendi apendule, the phone rings, his secretary comes and says, sorry, President Clinton wants to talk to you. So he leaves to respond to the phone. And then he sends away, he said, go and call you back again. So, as we leave, Thabo said, you have nothing to apologize. You know, it's all right, you're right. So I said, oh, thank you. So we talk about this thing as we're going there. Nothing happens. A week passes, 2 weeks. Third week, he addresses a white audience in Stellenbosch. Yo, he savaged me, man. He attacked me. I could feel it. And then some of the guys were there, they phoned me, the journalists, all of them, says, this thing was just about you. And that audience was purely white in Stellenbosch. How are you going to respond? I was still thinking about this. Now, I'm coming to Budbane. Let me just add this. During the transition, I was asked to go and be the one who represents the ANC when we're talking about the transition. So I was negotiating with the National Party to prepare for the handover, drafting the new rules of the National Assembly, the Senate, the Constitutional Assembly, employing new people, administrative staff, having to decide even on where you buy cutlery and everything like that. So I was responsible for that. So as people were busy campaigning, I was busy working, and I was working with this guy called Alex van Breda. So Alex came to me the following day after reading this thing, and he turned to me and said, listen here, me, I joined the National Party when Stradom was the Prime Minister. He was my leader. I believe in apartheid. I tell you, I believe in it. But listen to me. My leader told me that in politics you must choose your enemies very carefully. Take this advice from this apartheid guy. You can't afford to have Mandela as your enemy. You are a clever boy, you'll go far. Go and make peace with Mandela. I said, wait, but Mandela says nonsense. Mandela will never be wrong in this country. It's you. You want to tell me about your Irgo? Do you eat that? Go and apologize. And he walked away. Now, before I could do that, Madiba sends me a note and says I must call IOP and then I must handle all his financial affairs in Cape Town. I said, oh, thank you. He had texted me the night before. The first thing he does, and he called me. He says, I thought Mandela was wrong. He was intemperate. And he went on and on. I'm going to write to him, which he did. That's how it happened. So he wrote to Madiba, and Madiba didn't like to be criticized at all. You know. So he took to heart the fact that even Uputi had written to him. You know. It was not the only time over he came to my rescue, by the way. He's always been there for me. And then Zola. Yes, I did say that. I mean, the Constitution really, we have to review it. Because the outcomes that we're getting is not the things that we want.
Yes.
I mean, one of the things that I've been grappling with, and we have been discussing these things, is we have to amend our electoral system. I think the president must be directly elected, number one. And not only directly elected, but also he must not be confined to only appoint to the cabinet those who come from parliament. Because at the present moment, very few people want to go to parliament. You know, particularly those who have skills and are competent, they've got alternatives. So you need to get the best people to run the country. You know, so the president must be directly elected, and he must choose the cabinet from whoever is available outside of that. And I think that's when we'll be able to fix the problems of this country, if we can afford. Because at the present moment now, I can buy somebody. I can buy branches. They elect me. I go to parliament, and the president must appoint me as a minister, whether I'm empty or not. You know. The issue of you know, when Zola, of course, I mentioned this at the beginning, that the most painful thing was that I had expected that I'll be dealing with the criminals and all those sorts of people. Never thought that my own people will be the ones who I have to battle with. That's quite painful, actually. You know, one of my kids, he saw me, my picture on television. This ENCA, they're using my picture there as a screensaver. So Sizwe asks, he goes to my wife and says, Mama, is Tata in the naughty corner? Now, that's what we're going through. And you are accused by the very same people who are in the trenches with. You know, it would have been okay if somebody there, but those whom you are fighting with on the same side, and they turn on you, all because you are just doing your job. Yeah, that's painful. Yeah. I think I've dealt with them. Is there one I've left?
No, thank you very much. I think we have to bring it to a close at this point.
Maybe we should take the last ones. We promised the second round. I'm happy to give you another 10 minutes.
I'm a man under instructions. I've been told that we should finish now.
Oh.
And I follow instructions. And unless the earth will fall. Okay, let's hear that. That seems to be urgent.
All the substantive matters have been addressed, and I'm happy. You've done a good job. But before we go out here, we need to say this. The two of you have brothers. I don't know if it's a coincidence or what, who happen to be my friends. The younger brothers. The other one is Sipho, and the other one is Pelelan. When we had fought some time ago as captain of Blues, for the first time we received a sponsor from a certain Pelelan. Even up to this day, the best boerewors in the country. From Edike, Kwasasla,
A farmer.
ska Pelelan, pa Edike. Kamalinga, thanks. Yeah, Forterians are here. Now, as Forterians, we are proud that we've walked in the shadows, footsteps of legends. We're happy about that, even boerewors. Seda, mchanam kusipho, mchanam. Yeah, abanye bathi chuma ikhulumani yami. We happy and want to say here today, Budlugo, to register it, that as the younger generation coming after you, we've watched you. We just want you guys, including Usaki, to make to make a statement that you young people should take the country where it's supposed to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, many of us have never been politicians. I'm an activist in sports transformation. That's where I'm going now. We're busy with the Ekasi school sport revival, because that's where crime is. Next to a school is a tavern. We need to work around that. But we will never be able to overcome that without the support of established leaders like Uputi, like Uprof, like Putsaki is doing it already, and others are not making noise about it, like Osaki, but they are doing it. We need more of you guys to ensure that you hook us up with the relevant decision makers in the corporate world, to focus in the townships and villages, to empower our young people. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Friends, I really think that this has been a...
Please.
Should I
Yes,
allow-
please. Please.
Okay.
Is my former prosecutor.
Thank you, Prof. Mine is not a question, but I love the opportunity that I can now tonight subject an
Yeah.
NDPP to intensive cross-examination. And the answers on my questions will only be yes or no. NDPP, my NDPP, I'm glad you are here. And I want to say this, that authentic leadership is inspired by truth, honesty, and transparency. And throughout when I met you the first time in 1998 when you were forming the organization, then I served on one of your committees when we wrote the prosecutorial manual. And that principles you demonstrated right through from the start until you left. And when we had your farewell in East London, and then I said, I cannot believe that you're leaving us. My question is, if I am elected president and I can convince you to come back, would you?
Yes or no?
Actually, there was a similar question from online, which unfortunately I didn't address. Yes, I'm glad Mr. Killian raised that. By the way, it was wonderful working with you. Thank you very much for coming. I think that there's a number of ways we can contribute. I no longer have the same energy and the drive that I had then. You know, to go and ask somebody who's approaching 70 to go back is something that I think that should be carefully considered. But there are a number of ways one can make a contribution. And that I am happy to do. I'm happy to continue to contribute to rebuild our country. But I don't think that at this stage I should be the national director. I think all of us really have to do something We don't like the status quo, and therefore let's all make a contribution.
Thank you. I'm sure, friends, you'll agree with me that in this 2 hours or so we've been together, it has felt that we're in the presence of greatness. Something that we are rightly proud to have among us. People of principle and integrity and vision that Bulelani, among others, represents for us. It's been most special to do that here at the university. Thank you, Alan. And thank you, Jonathan Ball. Thank you, Marion. It's been a wonderful evening. Thank you, Moki. Moki, he got me into trouble, this chap. His comrade. Okay, I won't tell them. I won't tell them what you did to me. Okay, Dr. Olutobi Akingbade will say the vote of thanks. Dr. Akingbade is a postdoctoral fellow at Conrad. And I leave it to you,
Thank
Olutobi.
you very much. Thank you very much, sir. I'm standing in for Professor Christy van der Westerzen, she's unfortunately not here. And I want to first and foremost thank our speakers, of course. Professor Bane Pitiana, thanks so very much for that facilitation. Prof is an honorary professor, of course, with Nelson Mandela University here. And we want to most especially thank, of course, Advocate Bulelani Nkuba. Thank you very much. Yeah, thanks so very much for those. That has been very robust. It's been very insightful. Thank you for the perspectives you've helped us to set. And I also want to thank the audience very specially for coming out today. There's no way we would have had this robust conversation if we didn't have these very much persons here in this auditorium. Of course, I want to thank Marion Spag also. Then I want to thank John Marie Koff, and also Miriam Adams, also from Jonathan Balls. Thanks so very much for the good work you've done. And of course, I would like to thank the team at CANRAD, starting with our director here, Alan Zinn, Professor Christy van der Westerzen, Ms. Scott, all my colleagues at CANRAD. We have Klakanipo here, Sego is at the back there, and all the team that has been working at the back end to make sure that we have this very robust conversation. Thanks so very much to everyone. Advocates will be here on the stage for a few more minutes to do a little bit of book signing for us. And after that, we can continue the conversation while we have refreshments at the other side outside there. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming out tonight. Thanks so much. Yeah.